From the Defence Ministry to the Home Ministry, 5 new announcements for Agnipath recruits to diffuse massive protests. 10 seats to be reserved for Agniveers in the CAPF and Assam Rifles. The Defence Minister meets with service chiefs. Train services to be regulated in Bihar starting Saturday evening as violence continues unabated. Bihar suspends trains during the day. No trains to run from 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. till the 20th of June. The Union Home Ministry gives Y-level security cover to 10 Bihar BJP leaders after attacks on BJP offices as well as the residences of the Deputy Chief Minister and the Bihar BJP President. Protests rage over Agnipath in Punjab now. The Punjab Chief Minister says after targeting Kisans, this is an attack on Jawans. The top general driving the Agnipath recruitment scheme says arsonists opposed to the scheme have no place in the Indian Armed Forces. Burning trains and buses is not okay. At least 36 people dead in Assam and Meghalaya in 2 days. 1.49 lakh people shifted to relief camps in Assam. The IMD predicts heavy rains to continue in northeast India till the 20th. And Lalit Modi tells NDTV the IPL has been able to do a clean-up act, but Indian cricket is still a cosy boys' club despite the Lodha reforms. Several new concessions have been announced by the government to pacify protesters upset with the new Agniveer military recruitment scheme who have unleashed massive violence across the country. As protests against the centre's Agnipath scheme were reported now from 8 states across India on Saturday, the Ministry of Defence and the Ministry of Home Affairs stepped up and announced that they will absorb the Agniveers post-retirement. That's not all. Union Minister Anurag Thakur has said that the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports is also considering ways to absorb them. The Civil Aviation Minister, the Ministries of Ports, Shipping and Waterways also announced opportunities for these Agniveers once they have retired. The government hopes to quell anger of the protesters with these new guarantees. The question is, will it work? Already Prime Minister Modi's led BJP government at the centre announced a quota and age relaxations in the central ministries for those who opt for the new Agnipath military recruitment scheme. The new recruitment policy proposed the hiring of personnel for a 4-year period in the armed forces, followed by mandatory retirement for at least 75% of them without any pension benefits. And since the program was announced on Tuesday, Bihar has seen the worst spate of violence among states, with protesters setting trains on fire, vandalizing stations and attacking BJP leaders' offices, homes and cars.
Incidents of violence around railway stations, police vehicles torched and several policemen injured in stone pelting in Bihar, as protesters tried to enforce a bandh calling for a rollback of Army's new recruitment scheme, Agnipath. After several train coaches and engines being burnt in the last 3 days, train services have now been partially stopped in Bihar, with no trains plying between 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. Stranded passengers were upset after trains did not run during the day and around 5 dozen trains were cancelled.
कहाँ जाना चाह रहे थे?
हमको आरा जाना है।
आरा तो ट्रेन है कि नहीं, कैंसिल है?
ट्रेन बहुत सारी कैंसिल हो गई है, परेशानी हो रहा है।
दिल्ली से आ रहे हैं। दिल्ली से आ रहे हैं और यहाँ पर ट्रेन चेंज करके आपको जाना था?
जी, कल दिल्ली से अमरावती एक्सप्रेस में टिकट था तो वो तो कैंसिल हो गई। हम लोग कैसे कैसे बनारस एक्सप्रेस आती है तो वहाँ से बनारस मडुआ दिया है, यहाँ पता करने आए कि मतलब जाएगी कि नहीं चिरंजीवी एक्सप्रेस, यहाँ से भी कैंसिल हो सकती है। ऐसे 11 घंटा लेट है।
Bihar's Director General of Police himself came to the Patna station to inspect the damage, but when asked about police failure to control the violence, his answer was just this.
बिहार पुलिस के ऊपर आ रहा है कि बिहार पुलिस ने टाइमली एक्शन क्यों नहीं लिया? रेलवे को इतनी संपत्ति का नुकसान हुआ।
अरे आपका परसेप्शन है, रखिए अपना परसेप्शन अपने पास।
While the state administration is finally on its toes after attacks on BJP offices as well as residences of Deputy Chief Minister Renu Devi and Bihar BJP President Sanjay Jaiswal, an ugly political blame game began, with the BJP's state chief sending out a stern warning.
विरोध करने में कोई बुराई नहीं है, हम सब अलग अलग दल के हैं, लेकिन इस तरह से प्रशासन के द्वारा व्यक्तियों को टारगेट करना, प्रशासन के द्वारा एक खास पार्टी के दफ्तरों को जलाने करना, और 300 मधेपुरा में जो हुआ है, 300 पुलिस दर्शक बन करके बैठी हुई है, क्या पुलिस पे कार्रवाई हो रही है?
However, JDU's National President Rajiv Ranjan Singh was quick to hit back at the alliance partner.
आपका प्रशासन पर आरोप लगा रहे हैं। अरे प्रशासन क्या करेगा? प्रशासन को कहां से क्या मतलब है भारतीय जनता पार्टी से और जनता दल यू से? लेकिन आपके जो आक्रोश से, जो छात्रों नौजवानों के आक्रोश के कारण जो आपका संतुलन, थोड़ा अपने को संतुलित करिए, जो संतुलन बिगड़ा है उस संतुलन का प्रभाव है कि आप अनर्गल आरोप प्रशासन पर लगा रहे हैं।
Other opposition parties like Congress too continue to corner the government over the Agnipath scheme. On the other hand, Centre today came up with its new offer to quell the protests by announcing a quota in Defence Ministry jobs. With Manish Kumar in Bihar, this is Sukirti Dwivedi for NDTV.
And from Bihar to UP, 260 protesters have been arrested by the UP police after the demonstrations over the Agniveer scheme. There were violent demonstrations in Aligarh, Mathura and Agra in UP on Friday. In Aligarh, the protesters set a police post on fire. About 5 buses were vandalized, in which about 10 policemen were injured.
Like in many parts of India, the youth of UP, anxious and concerned about their future, set fire to buses in eastern Uttar Pradesh's Jaunpur. The police only brought the situation under control after several hours. But there was a visible difference in today's anger among the protesters in one part of eastern Uttar Pradesh. So far across the country, public property has been destroyed, but protesting students have been careful not to attack citizens. Which is why there has only been one death, despite the massive demonstrations across the country over the last 3 days, and that single fatality was not caused by students but by police firing. However, in this incident in eastern Uttar Pradesh, the protesters threw stones at a bus when it was filled with passengers. 10 students who caused violence have been taken into custody by the UP police. All across the country, the police have been targeted. Like here at the Kuchman railway station in Chandauli, students flung stones at police, injuring some policemen.
युवा नौजवान भाइयों से अनुरोध है कि अपने अपने घरों में ही रहें और शांति व्यवस्था बनाए रखें.
After the protests on Friday, there was quiet in Aligarh, Mathura and Agra districts. Yesterday, demonstrators had burned the Jatari outpost in Aligarh, which took an entire night to repair. Aligarh police have taken action against these demonstrators.
एफआईआर दर्ज कराई गई हैं, 4 एफआईआर हम लोगों ने दर्ज करी हैं और इन एफआईआर के आधार पर गिरफ्तारियां भी की हैं. डिटेन हम लोगों ने लगभग 60 लोग किए हैं, जिसमें 30 के लगभग को हम आज ही जेल भेज रहे हैं और बाकियों से भी इंटरोगेशन चल रहा है.
In particular, coaching centers for army recruitment, where families have spent money on fees and students have been studying with the dream of joining the Indian Army, have been shut down.
परसों जब काफ़ी लड़के शहरी क्षेत्र में जमा हो गए थे और उन्हें समझा बुझाकर वहाँ से हटाया गया था, उस समय जो कोचिंग सेंटर्स वाले थे, वर्तमान परिस्थितियों को देखते हुए उनसे ये अनुरोध किया गया था कि अगले 2-3 दिन के लिए जब तक ये आंदोलन चल रहा अपना कोचिंग सेंटर बंद रखें.
UP police is not taking any harsh action against the protesters, and they are trying to make them understand about the benefit of this new scheme. And apart from the benefits, UP police doesn't want their career to be ruined. In Aligarh, with Adnan Saurabh Shukla for NDTV.
And in Telangana, the Chief Minister expressed shock and grief over the death of a 24-year-old man who died after security personnel opened fire at agitators at the Secunderabad railway station on Friday. Mr. Rao announced 25 lakh compensation to the victim's family and also 1 government job to an eligible member of the family. The incident has led to a war of words between the government and the opposition BJP, with the Chief Minister blaming the faulty procedures of the centre for the death.
Telangana ministers and senior TRS leaders at a funeral rally condemning and blaming the BJP for the death of 19-year-old army aspirant Rakesh, who was killed in police firing after violence at Secunderabad railway station on Friday. Rakesh, whose sister is in the BSF, was among protesters after a mob burnt 3 trains and pelted stones at the police. Telangana Chief Minister K. Chandrasekhar Rao, who announced 25 lakh rupees for Rakesh's family, has blamed the alleged wrong policies of the centre for the death and said the state would protect Telangana's children. Union Minister and BJP MP from Secunderabad, Kishan Reddy, called the violence a conspiracy and blamed the TRS for failing to maintain law and order.
ఎవరు చేశారన్నది రాష్ట్ర ప్రభుత్వ బాధ్యత. ల్యాండ్ ఆర్డర్ శాంతి భద్రతలు రాష్ట్ర ప్రభుత్వ పరిధిలో ఉంటుంది. కాబట్టి నిన్న కూడా చూశాం మనం గవర్నర్ ఇంటి ముందు గత అనేక సంవత్సరాలుగా ఆ రకంగా మంటలు చూడలేప్పుడు.
Minister K.T. Ramarao tweeted that the violent protests against Agniveer scheme is an eye-opener and acute indicator of the magnitude of unemployment crisis in the country. The police have arrested more than 100 protesters and are looking for more people who indulged in arson at Secunderabad railway station on Friday. In Hyderabad, with camera person Nagaraju, Uma Sudhir, NDTV.
All right, let's get you news from around the country now. Thousands of students are at risk. Their education is at risk as 300 Jammu and Kashmir schools are now facing a closure. According to local reports, the state investigative agency, the SIA, found these schools to be involved in the civilian unrest of 2010 and 2016 in Kashmir.
आप क्या बनना चाहते हो?
Scientist, engineer, doctor.
These students are facing an uncertain future after the Jammu and Kashmir government's decision to shut around 300 private schools, allegedly linked with an affiliate trust of the banned Jamaat-e-Islami.
They come to trust him and set him free. So it's a story.
In this high school in Budgam, about 600 students and teachers are worried if the school will face the axe, since it was previously run by the Falah-e-Am Trust. Since 2017, like many other schools, it was delinked from the trust, re-registered and taken over by the local community management. Besides religious teachings, the school is following the Jammu and Kashmir State Board syllabus and Cambridge curriculum.
I received him with honor.
We are following the syllabus devised and instructed by the Jammu and Kashmir Board of State Education. Here, and till the primary level we've got Cambridge series, which is very modern and very much connected to the modern era.
According to the government order, the recognition of all the schools linked to Jamaat affiliated trust has been withdrawn. The Jamaat-e-Islami was declared a banned organization in 2019. The chief education officers have been asked to shut these schools within 15 days and shift students to government-run schools. The decision was taken after the state investigative agency, SIA, found these schools linked to the Jamaat-backed trust. The BJP has welcomed the decision, saying the Jamaat was an extremist organization involved in fomenting trouble.
Falah-e-Am Trust, a trust which was owned and affiliated by Jamaat-e-Islami. It used to run as many as 300 schools and as many as 50,000 students studying there. The government has banned these schools and directed the concerned ZDOs and CEOs to ensure that the students are admitted to the nearby high schools, higher secondary schools and middle schools. So we welcome the decision.
The Falah-e-Am Trust says only 7 schools are directly affiliated with them and denied allegations of its involvement in any subversive or separatist activities.
पता नहीं कि बैन क्यों किया गया, अलबत्ता हम पढ़ाते हैं एज पर गवर्नमेंट सिलेबस पढ़ाते हैं, तो जो कुछ गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से हिदायत है वही हम करते हैं.
It was almost after a gap of 3 years, children in Kashmir have been back to school since March this year. But in the middle of academic session, they find themselves at crossroads after government order of cessation of academic activities in Falah-e-Am Trust linked school. Even the schools which have no link with the Jamaat affiliated trusts are fearful. In Budgam, Nazir Masoodi, NDTV.
And now to the northeast. At least 36 people have been killed in Assam and Meghalaya in the past 2 days due to landslides and a heavy downpour, even as the IMD has extended the high alert or the red alert for this region till another 48 hours. So they're expecting extremely heavy rains in Assam and Meghalaya this entire weekend. NDTV Sanjay Chakrabarti and Ratnadeep Chaudhary report from one of the worst hit districts, Bajali.
Medhikuchi village in Bajali district of Assam inundated. This is one of the worst hit areas in Assam in this week's floods. Village women braving the flood waters as the embankment of the Pohumora river near the village was breached, causing widespread damage to the roads, culverts and hutments. They say this is the worst flood Bajali has faced in decades.
प्रति बছৰে ইঞ্জিনিয়াৰ অফিচাৰ আহি কাম নকৰে কোনো দিনে খালি চাই আমাৰ খান্তনা দি যায় তাত বাহিৰে আমাৰ একো নাই আমাৰ আজিৰ সমস্যা নহয় না এটো সমস্যা বছৰ বছৰ ধৰি সমস্যা
Particularly lower Assam, the districts of Tamulpur, Bajali, even Kamrup district, the districts of Bongaigaon, Nalbari, all these areas are areas where in the past 2 days there have been massive flooding.
प्रशासन की तरफ से हमारा अभी तक कोई ये खबर नहीं ले रहा है। आज सुबह से जैसे बारिश ज्यादा हो रहा है उसके बाद ज्यादा से ज्यादा पानी बढ़ रहा है।
In Bajali, at least 3 lakh people have been affected. Over 170 villages inundated. The government says efforts are on to reach those marooned, but the situation is unprecedented.
Situation in particularly Lower Assam districts are very bad because of unprecedented rain, as you know, but still we are trying to help our people to evacuate, to shelter our people.
Across Lower Assam, flood waters are gushing in new areas, inundating villages, and hundreds of villagers are now under the grip of flood. This is an unprecedented situation, and in many places even boats cannot move in, and the tractors are the only means by which the authorities and the rescuers can reach to the maroon people. Bajali is battling floodwaters for the last 3 days. The NDRF is helping the district administration in the rescue efforts. While the rains have weakened, people hope they don't come back with a vengeance. With camera person Sanjay Chakravarti in Bajali, Ratndeep Chaudhary for NDTV.
And as part of what the NCERT calls a syllabus rationalization exercise, content on the 2002 Gujarat riots and the nationwide emergency imposed in 1975 is among many texts that have been dropped from the textbooks of class 6 to 12. In its note, the NCERT says that the changes were made due to the coronavirus pandemic and the NEP, or the National Education Policy 2020, which emphasizes on reducing content load. The change comes 2 months after the NCERT dropped chapters about democracy and diversity, Mughal courts, Cold War era, the Cold War era, the Industrial Revolution, and poems by the Urdu poet Faiz. And in the international news, 2 blasts rocked Afghanistan's capital Kabul on Saturday morning. The blast took place near a Gurdwara. Multiple gunshots were heard in the area, and India's Foreign Affairs Minister has responded. India has responded, calling this a cowardly attack that should be condemned in the strongest terms, and that India has been closely monitoring developments since the news of the attack was received, and our first and foremost concern is the welfare of the community.
देखिए, बहुत ही निंदनीय है जो अफगानिस्तान में घटना हुई है, गुरुद्वारा साहब में फायरिंग हुई है, और ये पहली बार नहीं है, ये 3-3, 4-4 महीने बाद ऐसा जो माइनॉरिटीज़ पर अटैक वहाँ होता रहता है। तो मैं मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एक्सटर्नल अफेयर से और प्रधानमंत्री से आग्रह करता हूँ, कृपया अफगानिस्तान के जो राजदूत हैं उनको बुला के सख्ती से मैसेज दें कि माइनॉरिटीज़ की रक्षा के लिए सरकार जो है, भारत की सरकार साथ खड़ी है।
देखिए, अब तक की जो जानकारी है इसमें 3 लोग तो बाहर पक्का आ चुके हैं, एक जिनमें से एक रघुवीर सिंह है, और इनमें से 3 में से 2 को हॉस्पिटल भेजा गया, एक ज़्यादा जख्मी है। जो वहाँ के चौकीदार थे, गार्ड थे जो गुरुद्वारा साहिब के, वो मुसलमान थे, वो उसकी फौत हो गई, उसकी गोली लगने से मौत हो गई है वहाँ पर। और 7 से 8 लोग अभी भी बताए जा रहे हैं अंदर हैं, लेकिन कंफर्म नहीं है कितने अंदर हैं। कुछ लोगों को पीछे से अभी निकालने की बात और भी हो रही है, लेकिन वो भी अभी तक कंफर्म नहीं हुई। पुलिस कुछ जानकारियां देने की कोशिश कर रही है जो उनके हाथ में।
Now, welcome back. And finally, days after the BCCI bagged a whopping amount of over 48,000 crores for the Indian Premier League media rights for the 2023-2027 cycle, the former IPL chairman, Lalit Modi, speaks exclusively to NDTV, where he says the IPL will become the #1 sports league in the world.
Lalit, IPL has been your passion project. The league was attacked for corruption, spot fixing, teams were even banned. Do you think that IPL has now been able to do a cleanup act?
It has. It has really been able to do that, and it's moving up in the right direction. I think with the Gujarat Titans first season performing absolutely tremendously from scratch. I mean, that has shown that there is faith now in the game. And there is no fixing anymore.
Today, each match has been sold for 118 crore rupees. How much credit would you give the current dispensation for fixing the kind of valuation that they have done?
It is not them. It is the fan base that done it. I've always said every 3 or 4 years it will double. The price of IPL will continue to double. If you look at all my interviews from 2008, I said every 3 years you'll see the value of IPL double.
IPL now has become the #2 league in the world. How much time do you think it will now take to become the #1, overtake NFL?
It will definitely overtake NFL, and I've always said it will be the #1 sports league sooner than later. But it all depends on the innovation for the OTT platform, the digital rights. I mean, a lot of money has to be spent on technology, on the digital platform, a viewer experience, more cameras.
What is now coming in the way of your coming back to India? Is it politics?
No politics. I'm very, very friendly with the government. I have no problem with that. I have no cases at all. I mean, I'm really happy that it's taken a long time for it to clear. Finally, my name has been cleared as far as the court case is concerned. There's still the FIR in Chennai, which we're trying to get cleared off. Once that clears up, I will be back in India. I don't want a lingering issue of any court saying that I have not. Even that case I have won, but they won't publish the judgment.
There was a Lodha reforms that was done. The reforms came in place in 2018. Do you think Indian cricket has changed?
I think it's changed. I'm looking at it from a broader picture. You've got to understand, to do fixing also, you need to be in the system for a long time and do it. I'm taking the example of Gujarat Titans as an example. They got into the fray 1 month before the IPL started. They went on to win from day one. Okay? That means everybody who tried to fix the game couldn't fix it. And so I think that fixing has been very rife in the past, and you can see that in the results oriented. But I think this year has surpassed this, and I won't name any teams that have done badly or not done badly, and who are fixing in the past. And I think today it shows that the system has been cleaned. I think the police has also acted very firmly.
There have always been talks of Indian cricket being called a cozy boys club. If you were to describe it today, how would you describe it?
I was hoping that it would change. It hasn't changed. The Supreme Court had passed a rule of 9 years. I think they're finding ways and excuses to overcome that, to shove that. It's still a boys' club, a cozy boys' club.
Well, that was just one snippet of that exclusive interview. You can watch it in its entirety on our website. That's the news at this hour.